canon. They're still picking and choosing what they want. Like, they made a reference in one episode to the Mandalorian Wars, which means Revan. So as far as I'm concerned, Revan is canon.
Revan is canon now.
I don't care what they say, because they've mentioned the Mandalorian Wars, therefore Revan. So I'm happy with that. So, yeah. And as you say, with like Thrawn and stuff like that, they're picking and choosing the favourites.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, the expanded universe does get a bit convoluted when you read all of it. Like, I'm pretty sure there's like a zombies in space.
But the thing is, you can get rid of canon, but you can bring back the bits that are necessary,
yeah.
and kind of add to the story. There's a lot, like you say, there's a lot out there.
I think they'd be silly to bin over 30 years of expanded without taking anything from it.
40 years.
Is it 40 now?
40 year anniversary this year, yeah.
Wow.
But on that, I mean, so you've been a fan of Star Wars for what, pretty much most of your life, yeah? What was your earliest Star Wars memory?
Oh, the shame. So my earliest Star Wars memory is actually going to see the Phantom Menace in the cinema.
It's not shame. It's not shame.
It is now. It's But yeah, so I didn't really know too much about Star Wars, but I got caught into Lucas's master plan of selling toys. I was the one he was aiming for, me specifically. So obviously, you know, I had the toy double lightsaber and the toy this, and you know, Darth Maul was great, and all that lot. So I remember going to the cinema to see it, and the one bit I vividly remember is looking around and seeing my mum asleep. Like, she didn't find it interesting at all. And I remember the exact bit as well. It's the bit where they go out onto the towards the end, where they're storming the palace. They blast out the windows, and then they use the little grappling guns to go up a couple of floors.
Oh yeah.
That was the bit where I turned around.
On Theed, is that right?
It's Naboo.
Right, yeah. In Theed, yeah.
So yeah, so that was the bit that I remember vividly in my head. I don't know why out of all of it I remember that bit.
Right.
Like, cool. I don't remember any of the boring politician scenes.
Trade routes.
Trade routes and all that. But no, I remember that exact scene, turning around and seeing my mum asleep. And I remember leaving the cinema as well.
Was your mum still asleep at that point as
well?
No,
I think she woke up not too long after that. But then, yeah, obviously, you know, you had the lightsaber fight and everything. But I remember like leaving the cinema as well and thinking it was the best thing ever, and how I was going to be a Jedi and all that lot. So I think that was my earliest memory. I'll be honest with you, I don't actually remember watching the original trilogy.
So, sorry, that's your earliest memory, and that came out in '99. So you would have been.
I would have only been about 5 or 6.
5 or 6, and then
about 6, yeah.
About 6. So yeah, I mean that. Yeah, okay. So that's entry level age,
pretty much.
For Star Wars, you know. I mean, there's people like myself that are bringing my daughter up on it now at 3 years old because it's constantly on in my house. You know, and she's subject to Star Wars on a daily basis. But yeah, I mean, so 6 years old. So when did Star Wars actually become more than just a film that you enjoyed? When did it become something in your life?
I actually skipped episode 2, not through choice, because I wanted to go and see it. It was just we never had an opportunity to go and see it. So I think the first time I saw it was round a friend's house, but he'd seen it so many times he didn't want to watch it, so he put on Scooby-Doo, which I was very upset about, because I wanted to watch Star Wars episode 2. So I sort of skipped the whole episode 2 hype and everything, and the time it really sort of entered my life was around when episode 3 was coming out. And obviously at this point I knew like the basic story, that Anakin was, you know, ended up being Vader, and that was around the time I was questioning like the point.
Spoilers.
Yeah. And that was I think I was old enough at that point to sort of question like, why are they telling this story? We know how it turns out. So I was sort of, before the film, I was interested in learning everything I could like about the lava planet, because the details weren't really, you know, everyone knew the basic story, but no one knew the details. So I was going to Tesco and buying like the pre-film manuals and whatever, and reading about the planets and really getting into it. And you know, you learn about the species of alien and like, you know, like the big bumper books. So I had a couple of
coffee table books.
The massive like the world of Star Wars type thing. So I think that was the time I really started getting into it. And I went to see episode 3 with my aunt, who immediately went out and complained that the film was too loud.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so then I think they turned it down a bit. So yeah, I think that was when it really started to sort of become ingrained. And then, as I say, like shortly after that, I started getting into the games and the comics and learned about the expanded universe and stuff. And sort of, because again, like at that point, it was, once 3 was done, that was it. and that was it until recently when Disney took over.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, you know, I sort of had to feed the addiction elsewhere.
We hit a dark age
Yes.
somewhere after. Was it 2000 and
I think 2005 was the
was it?
third film.
Yeah, and we hit a dark age for quite a while there. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the backlash from the prequels, which in hindsight now, I you know, I have different opinion on them. I spoke to him on the phone-in show about this. That I went through a stage with it where I loved them at the time because I was 17 years old. I thought, this is brilliant, I've got Star Wars again. And then a few years later, I kind of hated myself for it.
Yeah.
And then I'm back at a stage now where I can appreciate the good parts. And I can let go of the bad.
It's difficult to appreciate the good parts while letting go of the bad, though, because the thing that I hate the most about the prequels isn't like the dodgy script or anything. It's the fact that they dismantled the world. So episodes 4 through 6, the main appeal to that for me was the fact that it was in the future, but it didn't feel like it. It was a lived-in world. Like, you know, the Millennium Falcon they constantly referenced it was a piece of shit.
Yeah,
like that it was falling apart and loads of stuff didn't work.
Yeah.
And you know, you go around to like Mos Eisley and like Cloud City. Cloud City was probably as advanced as it really got.
Yeah.
Same with the Death Star, though, I suppose. But in a way, even that wasn't brand new.
Yeah.
It was working. It was lived in. It felt real.
It felt visceral. Yeah.
But when you go back to the prequels, some of the shots are just ridiculous. Like, you know, like the shiny chrome ships.
Yeah.
And especially, I think there's one shot in the third one that bugs me more than anything, because it's the shot where they've just rescued Palpatine, and then they're walking through Coruscant, and Anakin and Padme see each other, and they run and hug behind the pillars. But if you actually look at the shot, it's just endless pillars. There's like one carpet, but endless pillars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just silly. Like, that isn't the Star Wars world. This is
Right.
just...
Okay.
So that's what annoys me about the prequels, because it just doesn't feel like it's the same world.
I'd be honest, it was probably one of my gripes as well with it, is even things, like you say, it feels too modern to be set in the past. And I have a problem with the droid army.
Yeah.
Things like, it's so advanced. The droidicars, the destroyers. Why have we not seen something that advanced?
Yeah.
Later on, I know you can make arguments for
the funny thing about that is
rebellion
the only thing that they ever try and do to combat that I find hilarious is the prosthetic arms. So, you know, in the End of Empire and Jedi, it's I think it's a skin at the end of Empire. It's a skin graft one with like the metal inside, and then obviously he still wears the glove, but you could see it's like the skin because they go to prick his fingers and he feels the yeah. But then in episode 2, when Anakin gets his prosthetic arm, it's like a Terminator hand.
Right.
And you're thinking, in this galaxy far away, a long time ago, where they're so advanced they can have like interstellar spaceships. You're telling me that in that 30-year period of all this advancement of lightsabers, blasters, you know, light speed travel, in that 30-year period between those two films, that was when someone decided, like, Keith, should we put some skin on that? So it's a bit, you know,
fair enough. Yeah.
Go from Terminator. That's the only thing they try and like reference to that time difference.
If they'd have kept it the same, they'd have been fine. But they seem to try and advance it, but in the past. Is that what I'm getting? Yeah.
It's just a bit.
So
it stuck out at me a little bit, but
yeah. What is your? I mean, talking off the films. I mean, it doesn't have to be the prequel. What is your actual favourite Star Wars movie? Out of the lot of them, have you got one? I mean, it is hard to choose.
I don't think I do. Every time I make this list, it comes out differently. It's such a hard question to answer.
Okay, what's your least favourite?
Probably Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, that's the correct answer.
Yeah.
You know, I know this is an interview podcast.
There's so much fundamentally wrong with that film. Even the story, even the title.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
I think Attack of the Clones is a weak title.
And there was a lot of potential they could have had for it. You could have had a film about the Clone Wars, which is referenced in episode 4.
Yeah.
Is where he's like, oh, your father and I fought in the Clone Wars. When, realistically, in the films, and even the Clone Wars, you never see them fight in a war. They have like a little skirmish every now and then. That's it. It doesn't feel like a war. So they could have had like a... But then I suppose in order to do that, they would have had to do number 1 a bit differently, which I think would have been better.
Planning the Clone War.
Yeah.
So, you know, because that's essentially what the film is, isn't it?
Star Wars Episode 2, the clones sort of turn up at the end for a little bit.
More catchy than Attack of the Clones.
It was.
But yeah, okay, so, I mean, So aside from the films, I mean, it is hard.
Okay.
I give it. It's hard
So
to choose.
I'll do it this way. So out of the prequels, Episode 3 was my favourite, without a doubt. I think it's the only good one out of the prequels. The other two had lots of potential, but they didn't do anything right with it. The third one became very space opera, and it was closer to the original trilogy in the tone, and I could still watch Episode 3 now. Like, it's a bit cringy, some of it, but I could still sit down and watch it and have a good time.
This is my point, though. I think with those films, like I say, there are some parts you can take away from there. Without a shadow of a doubt, in my mind, the lightsaber fight between Anakin, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul in Phantom Menace is by far one of the best lightsaber fight scenes in the whole of the saga.
Yeah.
But then when a kid jumps off the counter shouting "Yippee" to a stereotypically racial like alien, like it detracts me from that beautiful world that's got crafted. So but I can now go, right, do you know what? I think I put a lot of that stock into the script.
Yeah.
And how bad that actually was. So I can differentiate the two. So I understand completely what you're saying. There are parts of them where, that's great, but...
Do you know what else bothers me about the prequel trilogy? Is the fact that Lucas decided that everything had to tie in with everything. So Darth Vader as a kid built C-3PO.
The universe feels small.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? You've basically turned this grand universe, this galaxy of conflict, into one family. Their drama just messing everything up. And I still to this day don't understand why they made Anakin create C-3PO. You could have easily just introduced
Sell toys.
C-3PO as the set. Yeah, but actually, to be fair, yeah, for Christmas I did get a wired up C-3PO as a toy. So there's the answer. But story-wise, there's so many other ways they could have introduced the characters.
But this is I know that Mark spoke about this on the podcast. Is the universe sometimes can feel small when they do this stuff?
Yeah.
You're going into the new films and is Rey Luke's daughter? I hope not, because like that will just make it so. Why is everyone? Can Rey just be someone?
Yeah, just someone,
just her,
just
like
on her own.
And not to get too off track, but that's I'm just trying to get to the point of what you're saying is that can make the universe feel so small.
So yeah, out of the prequels, Episode 3 is definitely the best, and my favourite out of the prequels. Out of the original trilogy, I want to say Jedi, but there's only...
Pound it.
No, you don't want to pound it yet. So I want to say Jedi, but there's only about 60% of the film that I truly, truly love. If it was just that 60% on its own, then it'd probably be Jedi. Between that, it's between Empire. But I don't know. It's definitely between Empire and Jedi, but I can't...
Is it Return of the Jedi as long as it's got the Yub Nub song at the end of it?
No, it's
because
nothing to do
that
with the Yub
to
Nub
me
song.
Actually adds 10% of enjoyment to the film. Yeah.
No, like I think Jedi has a lot more sort of impact to it because it's the conclusion and everything. But at the same time, there are places where it's weak and they just fill in for time. And then building a whole new Death Star, I thought that was a little bit silly in the grand scheme of things. But again, they've done that with The Force Awakens as well. They've just built another...
Yeah.
We need to move away from Death Stars.
I won't go into that because that's a conversation for a totally different time if you're going to go down that route.
A New Hope is a standalone film, whereas Empire and Jedi intersect. So
you need them both.
Yeah. Especially with just the end of Empire. I'd imagine for you, I don't know, did you watch Empire in the cinema?
I'm not that old.
You're not that old.
I was born the same year as Jedi came out.
Oh, really?
83.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So,
shows how much I know about you then.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'd imagine watching Empire in the cinema must have just been such a
kicker, especially back then when you had to wait 3 years
what is
for a film.
No, you can't just end it like that. you need closure. But no, so I as much as I want to answer it, I can't. There's just too...
That's fair enough. I mean, okay, so beyond the movies,
yeah,
I know. Full disclosure, we're very good friends and I've known you for a long time, so I know you're into a lot of the expanded universe, as it were, even past. What is it outside of the movies that you have the most sort of like vested interest in? What is it?
Well, I think just overall, it's just again because it takes it away from the whole Skywalker thing. So just as saying, this galaxy throughout the whole of the time periods, there's so many stories to tell.
Yeah.
So the fact that it takes it away from that kind of thing. Specifically, what you mean, like books, comics,
games, you know, even TV series or the holiday special.
Yeah, the holiday special is the best thing ever.
Caravan of Courage, you know.
What is it? It wasn't the holiday special. What was the one with on Kashyyyk, but wasn't actually Kashyyyk? The Christmas.
That's
the holiday special.
Yeah. The Life Day.
Life Day, that was it. Yeah. And then Carrie Fisher just started singing.
Yeah.
God, what a mess.
I have a copy of that if you wish to see it.
I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen it.
Yeah. So what's okay? So what is it beyond that you know? I know me and you have tried to sit down before and play the Old Republic, which is no patch on Knights of the Old Republic.
The Old Republic era does it for me, because again, the thing with the films is, with the Sith you have the two, and the first Old Republic. It wasn't even the Old Republic, it was sometime after the Old Republic, I think, chronological wise. But I wanted to know why there were only two, why you had hundreds and hundreds of Jedi and only 2 Sith. So I did some research, and they wrote a trilogy of books about it, about the Darth Bane story.
Is that Path of Destruction?
Yeah, so you got Path of Destruction, Rule of Two, and then... Oh, Jesus, what was the third one called? Oh, that's really going to bug me now. Something... It was called something.
Yeah.
Path of Destruction, Rule of Two.
Still a better title than Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, it is, 'cause it's relevant.
Something.
Labyrinth of Evil. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to Google it now where I find my phone while I'm talking.
That's fine.
So obviously I read those books, instantly fell in love with them, and then from there I just sort of branched out to find more stories that were set in that era. And then just before they made the Old Republic MMO, I bought the tie-in novel for Revan, and obviously I sort of knew Revan because he was referenced in the Bane books. So then I read the Revan story, and then from that, the story of the Old Republic and the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic, sorry.
Yeah.
So then the story from the Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, and then it just sort of branched out to various different stories, and then from there, some of the stories were based in the comics. So there are a lot of comics based around that, and then obviously there's comics from after Jedi through certain timelines, like the what was it, the Mara Jade sort of era, that kind of thing, and all the stories to do with like Han's kids, which obviously have been completely knocked on the head now.
Yeah, okay. So did you read any of the comics at all, or anything? Have you read any of the new ones?
No, I haven't actually read any of the new ones.
New canon.
Yeah, like, I mean, to be honest, I've picked up comics here and there. I've never really done too much with the Star Wars comics, I'll admit. Like, I just pick them up here and there. Like, I've done the Boba Fett anthologies. So, like, I think I picked up from the library ones where they just collect a bunch of the Boba Fett stories. Yeah. So, like, there was, like, Boba Fett's first encounter with Darth Vader. That was quite an interesting story. Do you know the story behind that?
No.
Basically, Boba Fett gets sent to go and collect a bounty on someone. And then people will get sent after him, and the story basically is like there's some tribe of some sort that have that are connected with the Force in a certain way that they can predetermine the future. And this is between episode 3 and 4. So Vader wants that head because he knows Palpatine's sort of not quite being straight with him, especially because in that era he's not training Vader as a Sith. He's just sort of letting him limp along.
Right, okay.
So he wants to know what the big scheme is, but obviously Vader doesn't trust anyone with this knowledge. So while he sends someone after it, he sends Boba Fett after him, and then a couple of people after Boba Fett. And then Boba Fett obviously outsmarts them all to the point where Vader has to go and deal with it himself to collect this, the head of like this premonition being or whatever. And so Boba Fett has to fight Darth Vader, and he sort of holds his own. And then there's this bit where, in order to survive, Boba Fett has to throw this thing into the lava, which distracts Vader long enough, so that it even gets this snapshot of him aiming at Vader. Vader doesn't have a clue, and in his head he's like, I could take this shot and I could end Darth Vader right now, but a universe without conflict leaves me without work.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm going to leave it to him. And then that was the point where Vader
it's almost like a calling card that I could have had you.
Yeah, I could have had you. I had you in my sights.
This is how good I am.
Yeah, so that was, at that point, Vader sort of has like respect for him, and that's why coming forwards, That's why he goes to Bobber as his go-to.
Is that whole no disintegration thing's a bit of a cheeky? Yeah, you
I
nearly
dunno,
had
yeah.
me. No disintegration.
I still think that's a reference
to Aunt Beru and
yeah,
Uncle Owen.
because
Yeah,
he's on Tatooine, isn't he?
yeah, yeah, totally.
But
Okay.
no, so that was like quite a good one. Then there's a couple of just like standalone Boba Fett stories that they threw in there.
So that's like you used to get them from the library. So the
Like,
anthologies. Is there with like collections now? Do you do any collecting at all?
not so much collections like the Black Series or anything. Like I've got a couple of things. Like I have a Revan mask that I had commissioned.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It really is. I love it. I absolutely love it. I want to hang it on my wall. And then I've also got a lightsaber, which you full well know.
Enlighten us with the story of your lightsaber, because it is a beautiful, elegant weapon.
More civilized.
It is an elegant weapon from a more civilized time. Yeah.
I don't even think there is a story behind it. I just wanted a lightsaber, and I bought a lightsaber.
I'm not going to ask you how much it cost, but let's just say it did cost.
It was an irresponsible amount of money to spend on a giant glow stick.
Yes, it would. I could buy a new car. Well, not a new car, but a second-hand
working car.
A working car for the price of your. But
it's Dynasty of Evil. The
Dynasty of Evil. I know that now. You said it. Yeah.
Evil.
Okay, Dynasty of Evil. Going back to that, but so your lightsaber though.
Yeah. So I had it made. I think it was in Canada they made it, and there's a couple of websites that sort of do it. I'm not going to drop any names or anything. There's a couple of like places that do it, but I did a lot of research, and I think this was for my price range the very best that they could offer in that price range. Like if I'd have gone any higher, we'd have been talking like £2,000 for like custom. Yeah, like I could not afford that. Like in the grand scheme of things, in comparisons, mine weren't too much. I mean, you can pick up fairly decent ones from certain websites for 150, 200 quid.
Yeah.
Which are good, but this one that I got was designed specifically for dueling, so it can handle like getting hit about.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, it's actually not working at the moment. I need to get it repaired.
What happened? Did someone hit it?
No. So basically, it's quite delicate on the inside. So the inside is like microchips and SD cards and stuff.
Because you can change the sounds, can't you, on it?
Yeah, so you can plug the SD card into a computer and you can buy and download sound fonts, is what they're called. But I suppose you could even make your own one. So I'm pretty sure
that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think I downloaded one once for a laugh. So it was literally just like fart sound effects. So whenever you'd wave the lightsaber around, it'd just make like pretty much. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, you could buy different sound fonts, so it would sound like Darth Vader's, or it would sound like Qui-Gon's, or because each lightsaber has its own characteristic sort of.
I don't mind having the Jake Lloyd yippee.
Yeah.
Every time they do it.
So yeah, you can do that, and then my one as well. The reason mine was a bit more expensive is because you can change the colours, which is great. Because I didn't want to commit to a single colour because I didn't know what I'd be in the mood for. So my one, I had like some RGB.
Depends whether or not my mother's been slain by Tusken Raiders or not.
Exactly. So yeah, mine has like
got some younglings to do some killing tonight.
Yeah. So again, you can sort of plug it into the computer and you can choose the exact hue that you want, and I think you can have about 8 or 9 set up at once, so you can change between them. But at the moment, where you have to unscrew the pommel in order to get out the innards in order to charge the battery, because it's like some big chunky American or Canadian battery. Basically, when you put it back in, the speaker, it's like a really small subwoofer that makes like a really satisfying
hum.
Yeah. And basically, in order for that to vibrate, there's a little plastic seal. And that plastic seal has split somehow, which means that if you turn it on, the vibrations just make it go mad, and it's distorted the sound.
Okay.
So I emailed them about them. They've sent me the specs for the speaker. So I haven't really looked too much into it since I've got the email. So I'm sure I could get one here, and maybe just pay someone.
Probably know an electronic shop where you could get that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later. But other than that, I'd have to send it back to Canada for them to fix. Which I just can't be bothered to do right now.
What was the problem with that? I remember that when you purchased it, you had to make a trip when it got imported.
Was that? No, I think that was the mask. No, because the lightsaber just came straight to me. That was in like a big...
Did it? Oh, okay.
No, it was the mask, I think, because it got sent to... Because where did the mask come from? I think the mask came from Canada as well, or America.
Mask.
Yeah, but obviously because of the way they do things, they pay their tax differently. and because it was a product from there, they basically held my mask hostage until I paid.
It wasn't sent as a gift, because I don't know if you tick gift on it.
Yeah, but obviously if you do that, then that causes problems for them on their end.
Okay.
So I had to pay like the import tax and everything. But I go to the post office and they didn't have it. And I was getting worried at this point. I'm like, where is my mask? I just want my mask. So I had to like do a little circuit around the different post office depots to like find
Nice.
it. Holding it hostage for the sake of like a £20 import tax or whatever.
No, not good.
But I regret nothing.
Regret nothing. Good.
No, I think if I had the choice again today, I wouldn't be able to justify spending that much on it because various boring adult responsibilities. But I don't regret it. That's the thing. I wouldn't do it again currently at this situation at this point in my life.
But you don't regret it.
I do not regret it.
That's good.
Because regardless of whether it works or not, the fact that it doesn't work at the moment is irrelevant because I can still hang that on my wall and get a nerd boner every time I see it.
But that's the thing. I mean, as a collector, as you know, I've got quite a varied range of bits. I never regret buying anything.
Yeah.
Whether or not I can justify it to myself after I've bought it is a different thing. I just don't regret it.
I don't think it's justifying it to yourself. It's probably the wife at this point.
It is, yeah. Sometimes, I mean, she did come into my office the other day and look at my shelf and go, "There's some new stuff here," and I sheepishly was just like, "Yeah."
Well, I've got to.
Yeah. No, I've had that for ages. Like, you just haven't noticed. But anyway, so kind of what with regards to that, you're collecting and everything like that, and Star Wars is obviously it's got a new life. It's got a new new vision, new direction, and a new era coming. What you've obviously invested in it over the years, and you've got a lot of love for the series as a whole, not just the saga movies. We never really spoke about Rogue One, but I know you're a fan of that as well.
Rogue One. The only things I didn't like, well, we won't talk about it now, but there were little gripes I had with it, but overall I enjoyed it.
What were the gripes?
Just the way they differentiated themselves from the rest of the films, and I understand they had to, but like the theme music was slightly different.
Yeah.
Which I thought they'd have kept that. They didn't have an opening crawl, which again, because they're differentiating themselves from the episodes.
Yeah.
Which again I get, but I think the thing most of all is when they had the title of the planets come up on the screen. Like in films where it'll be like Berlin.
But there's a thing about that. If you actually, we'll talk about this later, and I know you can find it on the main Talk Star Wars podcast feed. There's quite an interesting conversation they have about that.
No.
About some of the titles aren't actually shown for some of the planets. Which leads you to start thinking about other avenues.
Is a good point.
But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that after we finish recording. Anyway, so but with regards to that, I know, like you say, there's things you like, but you can say that about the prequels.
No, of course. I think it was just obviously it was just a different structure.
And I get that, but let's exactly that leads me on to this question. Is obviously Star Wars is changing, and maybe for good, maybe for worse. I better or worse, I don't know at the moment. So far, everything I've seen, I've loved. It's rekindled my passion for this franchise. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here doing this with you now, and I wouldn't be a part of the VIP group on Talk Star Wars and stuff like that as well. So, but what are your hopes? What do you want to see in the future of Star Wars? Whether it be the comics, the games, the books, the films. What is it? Not even what would you like to see, but what are your hopes for it? Where do you want it to go?
So games, I want to see EA not make a colossal mess out of Battlefront 2, the same way they made a mess out of Battlefront.
I think they've learned, but yeah.
I hope so, because I'm losing faith in EA. But that's another talk for another time. Well, we spoke about it before, didn't we? But anyway, I want to see them not mess that up the way they did the first one. I'm very disappointed that they cancelled 1313 because that looked amazing. Did you know about that?
Yeah, that was a big shame. That.
So, but I mean, the future of Star Wars games look great. Star Wars games have always been great. Like, even going back to Super Star Wars and that, they were fun.
Yeah.
Like, I played on the arcade version. We found an American arcade in London the other week. And they had, like, the original joystick Star Wars. It was great. And then
it's still my beating heart. I would love to play on that.
We'll go one time.
We will indeed. We'll
and then, like the Force Unleashed. I absolutely love that game. I've played it about 50 times, over and over. So Star Wars games have always been really good. Even Star Wars Bounty Hunter, I re-downloaded that a few months ago.
There's actually on the YouTube channel, there's a Let's Play of that by Rob Wade is
Yeah.
actually playing a part of Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I Dark Forces was a great
Yeah.
game as well. You know, the people have always given. There's always seems to be this negative thing about Star Wars games, but actually through the years there's been some stunning games out there. There's some dross. Don't get me wrong.
What was the one they released for the Wii? Was it the Wii or was it Kinect? It was Kinect, wasn't it?
What, Bombad?
No, the Star Wars Kinect.
Oh, Star
Where you
Wars.
had the dancing games.
Dancing Stormtroopers.
That took a little hit onto my soul. That one did, especially the dancing Emperor. But no, Star Wars games.
I said the Dark Ages. That was.
Yeah.
The
The Star Wars games. I think there's always potential for Star Wars games, even if you just go away from the Jedi completely. Like, even racing. Like, the thing is with Star Wars is you can hit every single genre of game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason you couldn't even go as far as to do a horror themed Star Wars game.
Yeah.
You could totally do that.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, games. I think there's the only limitations are basically what they put on themselves and the licenses they can sort of Disney will allow anyone to use.
Right.
So yeah, I think the future for the games looks bright as long as EA doesn't touch it. And for the TV series, I think they're doing okay with the TV series as it is.
Would you like?
I would like to see maybe something on Netflix,
like a live action.
Like a live action.
See, this is what I personally see as that would be the best platform to launch a Knights of the Old Republic TV show, an 8-part mini-series, 3 or 4 seasons long. You know, that sort of Game of Thrones length.
Yeah,
that would be perfect.
I think that
for me.
would be really good.
Game of Thrones style as well. Might it be more adult orientated?
Definitely. You know. As far as like the books and the comics, you know, you said yourself they've got new comics coming out and stuff. They know what they're doing with the comics. I'm a fan of the comics. I haven't read any of the new Star Wars comics yet. I've been meaning to.
I think Mark would be really annoyed at me if I didn't mention that TSW Comics right now on this. That him and Rob Cast from Canada, they do a monthly podcast show on the Star Wars comics, where they kind of choose an issue for the next one to talk about. So they talk about the comic arc, you know, whatever they're reading, and then they'll choose one for the next podcast a month later. And they are so knowledgeable about their stuff. So if you do want to get back into them, to be honest with you, Mark's quite good as well with it, because Rob will read everything. Rob Cast reads everything, whereas Mark is quite selective about the things he's reading. So you know, he's got a lot of insight into it, and it's just well worth listening to if you want to get back into it. Because honestly, you know, it's like comics. Where'd you start?
No, that's true. That's true. I've been rereading Injustice recently just because the new game came out. But no, I will hit back up on the Star Wars comics at some point and see what the new ones have to offer. And then, as I say, with books, I think the books are actually my favourite part of the expanded universe, because again, there's just so much variety to it. So, and again, since Disney took over, I haven't really read any of their entries, because they've obviously had their own specific ones. Like I think they released one before Rogue One, like Catalyst or something it was called, Rogue One Catalyst.
Right.
That's
a book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like the prequel to the prequel, the sequel of the...
What are they called?
Tie-in novels.
It's a 3-part Catalyst. That is... There's 3 books. There's Aftermath, Catalyst, and something else.
Maybe I'm mistaken then.
They are pre.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. I haven't really sort of hit anything up recently.
Bit behind.
A little bit behind. Yeah, I won't lie. But yeah, and then for the films, what I would really like to see is them going away from the era that we're in at the moment. Like, I don't want to see a Kenobi film. I don't want to see a Han Solo film. I know they're doing it.
Yeah.
But I think the way they're tying in Rebels fills that gap. I feel like they're going to try too much to put more stories into that time period when there's so much more they could do. Maybe not post films. Obviously, they want to leave the future open. That's fine. But pre the films, you know, you've got 3,000 years easily.
Yeah, there's a lot of room to play with. I get that.
And they can do so much. Like I said, you could do like a Knights of the Old thing. I would give body parts for them to do a Darth Bane film trilogy or even a TV series. Just because I love the books so much. They're like my favourite books.
Yeah.
I would even like, I don't even know what I'd do. I just want that.
Yeah.
And even not to do with that, like with Rogue One, hallway scene notwithstanding, that wasn't anything to do with like the Jedi or the lightsabers. So there's no excuse saying, "Oh, it'd be too boring without the Jedi." You could easily do a Star Wars universe film that has nothing to do with the story at all.
Of course,
Just be.
of course. I personally think we'll get there eventually. They're
Yeah.
playing it safe at the moment.
Oh no, of course,
It's the Marvel formula. They're getting people back on board and interested. But I can see it going that way. I agree. You know, but I don't agree about the Kenobi film.
In a way, I do want to see a Kenobi film because, but to be fair, the episode of Rebels that they aired not too long ago with the Maul versus Kenobi thing. Have you not seen that?
No, I'm catching up.
Oh,
I'm catching up.
well, that did it for me.
Yeah, I know what happened.
But no, that did it for me. So I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stories to tell with what Kenobi was doing on Tatooine. I think he was just getting high in a cave most of the time. And,
Yeah, fair enough.
quote, talking to Qui-Gon.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, you know, there's a lot of potential. I just think I'd like to see them branch out a little bit more. But as you say, I get this playing it safe at the moment. You know, doing the characters like the Han Solo movie and this kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Is there anything else you want to share with us? Any other Star Wars stories that you have?
The only thing I can think of is what I told you the other day. My dad used to train in the same gym as David Prowse, and I learnt about that shortly after.
That's brilliant.
Going to episode 1. So obviously, as a 6-year-old, I didn't hear that. I heard my dad goes to the gym with Darth Vader. That's all I heard.
Brilliant.
That's all I knew. That's all I ever told anyone. It was great. I've been meaning to ask him about that.
Definitely let him use the gym equipment if you were on it.
Oh yeah. From what I remember him saying, he was, because I kept saying, like, "What's he like? What's this like?" Because in my head, I literally saw Darth Vader in the gym. Like that was it. And he was just like, "Oh, it's just normal." So
it's sweating that suit, wouldn't it?
yeah, that'd be grim. Wouldn't it? But no, so that's a fun one.
That's brilliant. It's a great note to end it. I don't think. How can you top that? My dad used to train in the gym with Darth Vader.
Yeah. Although I guarantee if I asked him now, he'd just say like, "Oh no, it just happened to be the same gym. Like I wasn't there. Like I wasn't there. What's it called? What's it called where you hover above the weights to make sure they don't decapitate themselves?
Spotting.
Yeah, it wasn't spotting for him or anything.
Yeah.
But no, my dad was a big bloke, and he was very competitive with like weightlifting that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up challenging him at one point. Probably lost.
Absolutely fantastic.
I don't think anyone could beat Darth Vader. That's just. But no, I mean, there's so much Star Wars stuff to talk about.
And we shall be doing it all again in 6 glorious months' time when The Last Jedi comes out. But anyway, mate, thank you for coming on and talking and sharing some of your stuff with us. When you die, I'm getting your lightsaber.
No, that's legally binding. I've already told everyone.
It's on YouTube now, so you know it's simple as.
If I die, the lightsaber's going to you.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to be. I don't even know if I want to be buried or cremated, but the mask is going on me.
Honestly, I couldn't care. I'm getting the lightsaber.
You're getting the lightsaber, but the mask is coming with me to the afterlife.
I can chuck you in the Thames for all I care.
Yeah, I'm alright with that.
Brilliant. Anyway, mate, thank you. Joking aside, it's been a pleasure. Honestly, I've known you for years, and I've still learned stuff today. So that's great, and it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you.